Welcome to Tabernacle Baptist Church. We appreciate you being in our Sunday school time. We're taking a look at chapter 9, starting with verse number 1. We find in chapter number 8 where Gideon had 70 sons by many wives that he had. You'll find that that's going to be a problem in the next chapter. And even a son by a concubine that was from Shechem, and he named him Abimelech. He passed away, he was buried. The people went right into sin, whoring after Baal, and made Baal Berith their god. They did not remember what God had done at the hands of Gideon. They did not remember what about his family. In fact, they didn't show his family any kindness, and we covered that a little bit last week. In chapter number 9, verse number 1, we find this: And Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, went to Shechem unto his mother's brethren, and communed with them, and with all the family of the house of his mother's father, saying, verse number 2, Speak, I pray you, in the ears of the men of Shechem, whether is better for you, whether that all the sons of Jerubbaal, which are 70 persons, reign over you, or that one reign over you. Remember also that I am your bone and your flesh. Now here we find a corrupt idea that Abimelech has, that he wants to be king. Now remember, Gideon had said earlier, when he said, we want you to be king, he says, no, I don't want to be your king, and I don't want my sons to be your king. Now he was judge, but he was never king. But Abimelech, as he grew up, realized that there was a lot in it for him, power-wise. Now we see the pride of Abimelech. We see the covetousness of Abimelech. As he says, look, there's 70 sons. Would you rather have all of them ruling over you, or would you like to have somebody that could watch out for you? And, he was saying, I'll take care of you if you'll help me become king. Now the reason we see is the pride that he has and the covetousness that he had, that he wanted to be king. But I want you to see how he goes about dealing with his brothers that he had. Verse number 3 said, And his mother's brethren spake of him in the ears of all the men of Shechem all these words, and their hearts inclined to follow Abimelech, for they said, He is our brother. And they gave him 70 pieces of silver out of the house of Baal Berith, wherewith Abimelech hired vain and light persons which followed him. Now you notice that the idea that he is getting money out of an idolatrous situation to fund the plan that he's making. He hires people that are not those that would be these are not people of standards and moral purity. These were people who would be willing to do anything for $1, and they were following Abimelech. And notice what had happened there. Verse number 5. And he went into his father's house at Ophrah, and slew his brethren, the sons of Jerubbaal, being 70 persons, upon one stone. Notwithstanding, yet Jotham, the youngest son of Jerubbaal, was left, for he hid himself. Now look at the situation, how horrible it was. Here Abimelech and these men that he bought, these thugs that he paid for, went into his father's house and took them out one by one to execute them. They took them to that one stone and killed each one of them. One of the brothers was able to hide himself, and it says here at the end of Jotham, and verse number 5, was hid himself and was left. In verse number 6, and all the men of Shechem gathered together, and all the house of Millo, and went and made Abimelech king by the plain of the pillar, which was in Shechem. And when they told it to Jotham, he went and stood in the top of the Mount Gerizim, and lifted up his voice, and cried, and said unto them, Hearken unto me, ye men of Shechem, that God may hearken unto you. Now here we find him as he's dealing with a parable. And he's going to tell from the Mount of Gerizim. He's shouting and getting their attention. He didn't want to be close to them because he didn't want Abimelech to get a hold of him. But he does want to tell them and give them a warning. He says, the trees went forth on a time to anoint a king over them, and they said to the olive tree, reign thou over us. And the olive tree said unto them, should I leave my fatness wherewith by me they honor God and man, and go to be promoted over the trees? And the tree said to the fig tree, come thou and reign over us. And the fig tree said unto them, should I forsake my sweetness and my good fruit, and go to be promoted over the trees? Then said the trees unto the vine, come thou and reign over us. And the vine said unto them, should I leave my wine, which cheereth God and man, and go and be promoted over the trees? Then said all the trees unto the bramble, come thou and reign over us. And the bramble said unto the trees, if in truth ye anoint me king over you, then come and put your trust in my shadow. And if not, let fire come out of the bramble and devour the cedars of Lebanon. Notice verse number 16. Now therefore, if ye have done truly and sincerely in that ye have made Abimelech king, and if ye have dealt well with Jerubbaal and his house, and have done unto him according to the deserving of his hands, for my father fought for you, and adventured his life far, and delivered you out of the hand of Midian. And ye are risen up against my father's house this day, and have slain his sons 70 persons upon one stone, and have made Abimelech the son of his handmaid king over the men of Shechem, because he is your brother. If ye have dealt truly and sincerely with Jerubbaal and with his house this day, then rejoice ye in Abimelech, and let him also rejoice in you. But if not, let fire come out of Abimelech, and devour the men of Shechem and the house of Millo. And let fire come out of the men of Shechem and from the house of Millo, and devour Abimelech. Now here's what the parable is saying. There were these trees that they said, we want a king over us, and they went to those that had actual profit to mankind. They wouldn't leave their place to reign over the trees. Not the olive tree, not the fig tree, not the vine, because they already had a place. But the bramble, they said, oh yes, I'll be your king, and if you don't make me king, just remember, when bramble catches fire, it sets the woods on fire. So the bramble only had threats to give, and hindrance and hurt to the trees. Here they had given up the opportunity, Shechem did, of being judged by the sons of Gideon to wipe them all out, and they had part in this. They gave Abimelech the money that he used to rent these men, to hire these men, and they did his will, and they slaughtered 70 sons of Gideon one by one. Not a political thing, but a massacre, so that he could become king. He wanted to take everything that might be a hindrance to his ruling, so that there wouldn't be someone that could stand up and say, you're wrong, you can't do this. He wanted to have the power so much he was willing to destroy his whole family so that he could have this. And as we find the message here, and the fact that Jotham says this parable of the trees speaks of the wickedness of the bramble. And here, if you've done right by Gideon, who has delivered you, then you have much to rejoice over. But you came into my father's house, and you destroyed all of his sons except for me and Abimelech was the cause of this. And you just remember that if this is not honorable, there's fire that's going to come out of Abimelech, and destroy you. And there will be fire that will come out of you that will destroy Abimelech. Because both of you are wrong. You in wanting him to be king, who would come in to destroy his own family, to make himself king. Verse number 21. Jotham ran away and fled and went to Beer, and dwelt there for fear of Abimelech his brother. And when Abimelech had reigned 3 years over Israel, then God sent an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem, and the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. Now, I want you to see something. You know, the Bible teaches that there is pleasure in sin for a season. Here was Abimelech, who had gone after being king and killing his whole family in order for him to have Shechem make him king. And for 3 years, there was no problem with Abimelech. For 3 years, I wonder if Jotham said, Lord, when are you going to do something? When is this going to happen? There's pleasure in sin for a season. Whether you're dealing with some intoxicating substance or a lifestyle that deals with immorality, if for a season you may be able to get away with it. There's pleasure in sin for a season, but watch out. The Bible teaches two things. You reap what you sow. And do you remember what the 3 laws of sowing and reaping are? You reap what you sow, you reap later than you sow, and you reap more than you sow. So Abimelech had sown wickedness. For 3 years he reigned, and I'm sure he was thinking, well, I got away with that. But you see, this is exactly the mindset of what we find in the book of Judges. For 3 years, he was on the idea, well, I got what I want, and nobody's going to stand in my way. But you notice that pleasure of sin, and maybe the comfort that he had there. After 3 years, he said, I'm comfortable in this place. I've got everything I want. And God reaches down and he says, no, I'm going to send an evil spirit between Abimelech and the men of Shechem. And the men of Shechem dealt treacherously with Abimelech. Now 3 years, the troubles start to come. Now, Abimelech can't turn to God because he doesn't worship God. He didn't follow God's plan. He had actually taken money from the idolatry and the work that there was done, the Baalberith. And that money was used to hire those low thugs, those low society thugs, so to bring about the work there. So Abimelech now is dealing with the cruelty. Let's go down here and find out just exactly what's going on. Verse number 24. That the cruelty done in the 70 sons of Jerubbaal might come, and their blood be laid upon Abimelech, their brother, which slew them upon the men and upon the men of Shechem, which aided him in the killing of his brethren. Now there's always the reaping of what we sow, and it might not be when we sow it, and it might not be as far, it'll come later, but it will be more, and it will be of the same sort that we have. Now notice here, verse number 25, the men of Shechem set liars in wait for him in the top of the mountains, and they robbed all that came along that way by them. And it was told to Abimelech. And Gael, the son of Ebed, came with his brethren and went over to Shechem, and the men of Shechem put their confidence in him. Now, here we go. We're setting up for a problem here, because Abimelech has Shechem, the men of Shechem actually going out and waiting for Abimelech to come along. They want to ambush him, but while they're there, they just ambush everybody. You see the wickedness, that how it has spread? How that what Abimelech had done and thought he could get away with had spread to the men of Shechem. And now they were actually doing everything they could to hurt the people in their own community, the people that were on the way. And here comes Gael, the son of Ebed. And they put their confidence in him. Verse number 27, they went out into the fields and gathered their vineyards and trode the grapes and made merry and went into the house of their God and did eat and drink and cursed Abimelech. And Gaal the son of Ebed said, who is Abimelech? And who is Shechem that we should serve him? Is not he the son of Jerubbaal, and Zebul his officer? Serve the men of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for why should we serve him? Now there was a message going out. Abimelech's very foundation was being eroded under him. Shechem was turning against Abimelech. Abimelech now probably dealing with fear and anxiety. What he had 3 years of peace, you could call peace, I guess, thinking that he had bypassed the judgment of God. It didn't happen. And here we find that now there's an undercurrent. And they said, well, now wait a minute. Abimelech, isn't he the son of Gideon? And why would you run after him? And he said, who is Shechem? Who's Abimelech? Verse number 29 says, and would to God his people were under my hand, then would I remove Abimelech. And he said to Abimelech, increase thine army and come out. And then Zebul, the ruler over the city, heard the words of Gaal and the son of Ebed. His anger was kindled. And he sent messengers unto Abimelech privately, saying, behold, Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brethren are come to Shechem, and behold, they fortify the city against thee. Now therefore up by night, thou and the people that is with thee, and lie in wait in the field. And it should come that in the morning, as soon as the sun is up, thou shalt rise early and set upon the city. And behold, when he and the people that is with him come out against thee, then mayest thou do to them as thou shalt find occasion. And Abimelech rose up, and all the people that were with him by night, and they laid wait against Shechem in 4 companies. And Gaal, verse number 35 says, the son of Ebed went out and stood in the entering of the gate of the city. And Abimelech rose up, and the people that were with him from lying in wait. And Gaal saw the people and said to Zebul, behold, there come people down from the top of the mountains. And Zebul said unto him, thou seest the shadow of the mountains as if they were men. And Gaal spake again and said, see, there come people down by the middle of the land, and another company come along the plain of Meunium. And Zebul said unto him, verse number 38 says, where's now thy mouth wherewith thou saidest, who is Abimelech, that we should serve him? Is not this the people that thou hast despised? Go out, I pray now, and fight with them. And Gaal went out before the men of Shechem and fought with Abimelech. Verse number 40 says, and Abimelech chased him, and he fled before him. And many were overthrown and wounded, even unto the entering of the gate. And Abimelech dwelt at Arumah, and Zebul thrust out Gaal and his brethren, that they should not dwell in Shechem. And it came to pass on the morrow that the people went out into the field, and they told Abimelech. And he took the people and divided them into 3 companies, and laid wait in the field, and looked, behold, the people were come forth out of the city. And he rose again and smote them. And Abimelech and the company that was with him rushed forward and stood at the entering of the gate of the city. And the 2 other companies ran upon all the people that were in the fields and slew them. And Abimelech fought against the city all that day. And he took the city and slew the people that was therein, and beat down the city, and sowed it with salt. Now, this was the city that was their city. It was the city of Abimelech. And yet now he's destroyed the city, and he's turned it to just to tear it to pieces, to sow it so that they couldn't even sow any fields and bring forth crops. The salt would destroy everything that they had. Verse number 46, and when all the men of the city of Shechem heard that, they entered into and hold of the house of the god Berith. And it was told to Abimelech, and all the men of the tower of Shechem gathered together, and Abimelech gat him up to Mount Zalmon. he and all the people that were with him. And Abimelech took an axe in his hand and cut down a bough from the trees, and took it and laid it on his shoulder, and said unto the people that were with him, that we have seen what ye have seen me do, make haste, and do thou as I have done. And all the people likewise cut down every man his bough, and followed Abimelech, and put them to the hold, and set the hold on fire upon them, so that all the men of the tower of Shechem died also, about 1,000 men and women. And then went Abimelech to Thebez, and encamped against Thebez, and took it. But there was a strong tower within the city, and thither fled all the men and the women. And all they that of the city shut it to them, and gat them up at top of the tower. And Abimelech came into the tower and fought against us, and went hard unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. Now notice here, it seems like Abimelech has got the upper hand, but he's destroyed the people that he had said, I want to rule over you. And the ones that said, we want you to be their king. So fires come out against Shechem. Verse number 53 says, and a certain woman cast a piece of millstone upon Abimelech's head, and it all to break his skull. And he called hastily unto a young man, his armor bearer, and said unto him, draw thy sword, and slay me, that men say not of me, a woman slew him. And his young man thrust him through, and he died. What a terrible part of history for Israel. That Abimelech, who had slaughtered his own family, would turn on the people that had called him, because their hearts were turned against him. And for him to find an end with a broken skull for what a woman did, and asked a young man to thrust him through, and he died. Verse number 55, and when the men of Israel saw that Abimelech was dead, they departed every man unto his place. Thus God rendered the wickedness of Abimelech, which he did unto his father, in slaying his 70 brethren. And all the evil of the men of Shechem did God render upon their heads, and upon them came the curse of Jotham, the son of Jerubbaal. What a terrible situation for the nation of Israel, to once again see what idolatry does. And we find Abimelech, who could have been a great help to the folks of Shechem and to Israel, working with his 70 brothers. And yet they turned not only from Gideon, but Shechem turned against Abimelech and his rule over them. Many in Shechem died, and Abimelech died. Not a pleasant death. I'd say that would be a horrible death. That he'd be lying there knowing that his head was crushed and he was dying, and he asked for someone to run him through. What sin brings to us when we follow after sin.